a lack of identity with younger voters, a lack of voter recruitment, and a great amount of apathy in the voter pools over the course of time. Some of that's because of corruption on both sides of the aisle, but voters aren't engaged. It's easy to come to meetings like this. It's hard to get on the street and ask your neighbors to vote. It's hard to have the right information to convince your voters or your neighbors to vote for the candidates of your choice. And when we have numbers like this, if we can't do that, we're not going to be overly successful. So I can't express to you how important it is for us all to stay engaged beyond the rallies, beyond the meetings, but truly to do the hard work. Last but not least, look at this graph. Downstate voters, that was truly the safe haven for the Republican Party. 70% of the vote statewide almost every year. We have now flipped. This year, this was an anomaly. It was the first Blagojevich election. We didn't have very much to talk about back then. It was right after the Ryan trials. But nonetheless, look at this margin of difference here. We now are almost in the statistical heat downstate. Now figure that out. We have the Chicago politicians winning downstate. Why is that? A lot of it is because we haven't done our jobs as voters, as members of the Republican Party, to not only build our brand up from what it was in 1994, but we haven't been able to hold our own accountable for their failures. So the public doesn't necessarily trust us at this point. And you add to the next slide. Well, basically that's what we're talking about. One of the reasons why we have not done well over the course of the last 16 years, we have out-of-control spending in our own administrations. We have now massive debt, which we actually started. We were $3 billion in debt when George Ryan left the office. And of course, corruption, we can't go every day without reading something about corruption. Go ahead. And here's the raw data. If you add Chicago, suburban Cook, and the Collar counties, 2042, almost 61% of the vote comes from northern Illinois, those three regions. And then 39% of the vote comes from downstate. If you do the math, you can realize how difficult it is for us to win. And in fact, about 10, 12 days ago, Senator Brady, the gubernatorial candidate for the Republican Party, was up anywhere, depending what poll you looked at, anywhere from 8 to 12 points. It took 10 days of TV advertising by the Democratic Governors Association, a fairly light TV buy, frankly, only in the Chicagoland area, to make that race now a statistical heat. That's how much the media can affect decisions of voters. That's how important it is for us to get on the street. 10 days. 10 days that leads to dwindle to a statistical heat. Something that we should all be thinking about here, especially in Lake County. The Hispanic vote, Hispanic population is increased 28%, 28.5% since 2000. Yet 71% of Latino voters said they consider the Republican Party not favorable to immigrants. And that subsequently, they are angry at the Republican Party, but ideologically, they're aligned with conservative thought process. Again, we haven't done a good job as a Republican Party of reaching out to Hispanic voters. I know there's a balance, and I know a lot of people are angry about immigration, and they should be, because the federal government has failed their job to stop the tide of illegal immigrants. However, on the other side of the coin, we have to be very smart and strategic in our efforts here in Lake County and throughout the state to try to educate the Hispanic voters on the values of the Republican Party, or at least the values of fiscal discipline.
Can we do that with SB 1070?
SB what?
With SB 1070, the Arizona Immigration Law.
Well, no, I think it's a double-edged sword. I think what Arizona did was able to draw attention to the issue. I think to talk about more messaging, I think the Obama administration was very smart in trying to use that as a wedge issue. It's a very shrewd political move. I think, personally, it's something that needs to be addressed, certainly not during the election cycle. And so it could be a very damaging effect for us, and it's a galvanizing opportunity for Latino voters to come together and be against the Republicans again. Very major voting bloc. Major voting bloc. You watch in the next 10 years as the Latino voting bloc becomes organized, much more organized. They're no longer as divisive that they used to be within their different factions. They're going to be a powerful voting bloc, and a voting bloc that should be for fiscal conservatives, hardworking people, religious people, everything that you guys stand for the most part in this room. That's the Latino voter bloc's ideology, yet we haven't done a good job in not only recruiting them, but bringing them into our party. And that's going to be an effort that's going to be long-standing, but believe me, if we can't do that, our our problems in the state of Illinois are only going to be more difficult. Gloom and doom, you know, I gave you all the gloom and doom and the reality of politics, the pragmatic perspective of politics, but at the end of the day, you guys can make a difference. You really can make a difference. I've been in state government for 18 years. I've been doing my own political consulting for the last 7, 8 years now. And I can't tell you how many times I started something in the state government legislatively where one person made a phone call, one person found the right person to contact, and it spread like wildfire. We've passed legislation over the course of I've been able to pass legislation over the course of the last 10 years that I thought I never could do. When people said you couldn't do it, we communicated. We got the message out. We got people engaged in the process. The transparency bill that we passed took us 2 years. Yet we had 30,000 of our members sending letters to lawmakers every day that we asked them to through our systems to ask lawmakers to pass this legislation. And eventually they'll listen. If I could give you a little story, you all have, most of you have had children or grandchildren. And if you think about politics like a babysitting job, those who yell the loudest get heard the most, just like your child. If you're at home and you got a kid screaming like crazy, and you got a nice kid over here, who are you going to go to take care of first? The ones that scream the loudest. The same thing in politics. Right now in the state of Illinois and throughout the nation, special interests speak the loudest. They have the money, they have the manpower, and they have the ear of the lawmakers. For the first time really in my political history, that paradigm's starting to change because of groups like this, because of groups like Americans for Prosperity, where we're giving you the venue, we're giving you the tools to speak louder than the special interest groups. We're not there yet. We're not even close, but we have an opportunity. This is probably the only time in the last 20 years where citizens truly have the opportunity to make a difference because we've come together on like-minded issues. We're not as divisive as we were before. It's so important that we stay that way. It's so important that you join groups like this, join groups like Americans for Prosperity, and build that membership and then work. Because coming to meetings is one thing, getting out on the street and turning the vote is a totally different thing. You heard some of that about precinct captain work. I was a precinct captain for 10 years in Chicago in the 36th Ward, the most powerful Republican ward in the city of Chicago, the home of Ron Blagojevich, unfortunately. However, we got things done in that ward. We worked with Democrats to get things done, but we also had 380 job holders in that ward, and we were the most powerful team of the Republican Party in 1994, 96, and 98. Then things fell apart because our own politicians didn't pay attention to what the people wanted. So again, you have some personal responsibility. You heard about new media today. You heard about letter to the editors. You heard about, you're going to hear me talk quickly about walking, talking, and coming together as local groups. You can have more power. Just think about this. After this election cycle is over, you have more power today than you ever had before because you can affect the local elections. So when these statewide elections are over with and your congressional races are over with and we do everything we can, know that there's more work to be done. We talked about county board races today. You have mayor's races, you have township races, you have library boards, school boards. Get engaged in those type of races because the Democrats have a very good system. They find people, talented people, to engage in lower level offices to build their resumes. Because they're nonpartisan offices, you really don't know what they stand for until they're recruited by the Democratic Party to run for a state legislative office, to run for assistant attorney, general, and whatever they want to run for, they're positioned at the low level, so you really need to pay attention to your lower level offices and get engaged. Now, for organizations like this, like your organization, like Americans for Prosperity, understand, I always call it the 4 M's. To be an effective organization, you need the 4 M's. And certainly the first and foremost is money. Hey, Joe, is money. We need media. We have the media right now. We have a great message right now. The public and politicians are finally listening that we're fed up at how they're spending our tax dollars. That they want us, we want them to be fiscally responsible. They don't believe it yet. They don't believe we have the power to convince them at the polls. And frankly, the only thing that politicians understand is winning. If you cost somebody an election in this county, throughout the state, if you're recognized as the group that helps somebody get elected or someone fired, you will be engaged in a process beyond your wildest dreams because that's what the politicians care about, winning or losing. Of course, we want you to join Americans for Prosperity. It'd be great. We certainly, our organization, if you consider it like an umbrella organization for the Tea Parties. We're a national group. We have a little over 1 million members. We ask you to join our group. It's free. It's easy. We have sign-up cards here. Go to our website, americansforprosperity.org. Find out more about us. You have tons of information from us. Tons of opportunities to engage with your elected officials. The one thing I do want to talk about briefly is something called November is Coming. That's the last thing I'll talk about. We want to test grassroots people. We want to test the Tea Parties. Americans for Prosperity has invested in a tremendous amount of money, and November is coming. It is truly the opportunity for activists to get engaged. We are going to announce formally in the next 2 weeks our activities, but in short, we're going to be up here in Lake County, in the 10th Congressional District, in the 14th Congressional District in King County, and the 11th Congressional District in Will County, providing activists such as yourself with at-home phone bank systems and trainings on how to use that, where you could actually make the phone calls from home. It's a great tool. It actually is going to challenge you all to truly get engaged with the phone banking. And on top of that, we're going to have at least two walk programs in those congressional districts where we're going to be educating the voters on the issues and how the incumbents and or challengers have voted on those issues. So it is a walk, door-to-door program that's going to be funded by Americans for Prosperity. That we're going to ask for partnerships with all the Tea Parties, Northern Illinois, as well as the Lake County Tea Party and all the other Tea Party groups, as well as GOP organizations, if that's suitable, to help us get out the vote, to help us educate the voters on the value of their vote this election cycle. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully you'll join our organization at americansforprosperity.org and find out more about November is coming, but we'll be in this community. We've been here for a while fighting local battles, and now we're getting ready to fight some of the congressional battles. So thanks.